Let's take a look to details, how Taikun CloudWorks can manage OpenShift cluster and bring new features and workflows for your development and operation teams. Here we have OpenShift cluster deployed, which will be our host cluster. We can see that we have quite a lot of CPUs and RAM available and enough disk size for what we want to try. Our goal will be to deploy multiple virtual Kubernetes clusters based on OpenShift in this particular one. With Taikun, this is really easy. We leverage all the features available in Red Hat OpenShift and make them super simple to use. So let's switch to Taikun to see how we can move on. Here, first thing we need to do is add OpenShift cluster to our multi-cloud management. We already have one for purpose of this demo, but let's take a look if you want to add another one. We choose OpenShift, and the only thing we need to do is to choose the name for our cloud config and then download or select kubeconfig file which we'll use to access the cluster and pull secret for the OpenShift. Then we will automatically load available storage classes which we can pick, and then last thing we need to do is to pick some base domain which will be for OpenShift itself. Here we already have one prepared, and we can move on to deployment. To the details of other features of Taikun, you can take a look to other videos or documentation, or you can try yourself in our free demo online. So let's skip the manager features for now, and let's move on to directly deploying OpenShift cluster. We have already one ready, which I will show you in a moment, but let's go to the process itself. Again, we need to pick a name for the project, select organization, pick cloud credential. This time, we will use the OpenShift credentials. We can set up CIDR if you want. We can select access profiles, auditing profiles, and Kubernetes profiles from Taikun if you want to execute them, and some advanced stuff like policy profiles, monitoring, and backup. OpenShift itself also have integrated monitoring, so we can leave Taikun 1 disabled. But if you want to use some advanced features of Taikun, like showback or alert routing and more, then we need to enable our monitoring. We can also enable backup, and with backup we can then back up any namespace including data and restore them not just in OpenShift but in any other supported cloud credentials in Taikun. Some more features are available, like AI assistant. We can set up the project expiration time, so it will delete, for example, this OpenShift cluster automatically, or we can also bind flavors which then our users can use to deploy OpenShift cluster. When we do this, we will create empty project, and then we can assign users from Taikun who can access it. And that's an important step, because it means that no one really needs access to the OpenShift itself. They can just consume it dynamically, create or delete or change their virtual OpenShift experience, but they don't need to have access to OpenShift itself. So let's take a look to deployed one. The only thing we need to do when you want to deploy one is to add node pool. Simple thing, let's pick a name and then choose what flavor we will use for that pool, how many replicas we want, and then we will just hit add and commit. In 10 to 20 minutes, we will have our completely segregated OpenShift cluster deployed. And what we can do after that, you can see that I already deployed one. We can see kube configs, we can create kube configs, we can open terminals and directly access kubectl from here. And we can directly through here access the OpenShift cluster, again without any need to be able to access the OpenShift cluster with OpenShift credentials if you don't want to. This will take a little time because everything here is virtual, so it's a little slower side, but it will do the job. Then Then we can take a look to other features, like backup policy, for example. We can create our own backup policy here, define what namespaces we want to backup, and in what time and how long we want to have them in retention. Then we will see backup and restores. And now the fancy part. We can also deploy and restore backups from other resources. In this case, I have one other project in OpenStack, and I can easily see the backups from that location. I imported the location here, and I can see backups of my locust instance, and I can use any backup available to restore in my OpenShift here. This way, you can move your data across different Kubernetes clusters with ease. One last thing I want to show you is that even though that I don't have access to the OpenShift cluster itself, I can. So administrator of the host OpenShift cluster can give me access to my virtual one. So this is my private virtual OpenShift cluster, which I can use with my team to test and deploy whatever I want without risk that I will poke some holes into the host OpenShift cluster. And then I will not need it, I can just delete it or recreate. So this is the way how we treat OpenShift with Taikun.